and commercial semiotician. He's a lucky, lucky man. He divides his time between Paris and Bologna. His particular focus is luxury, beauty, fashion, and design. And he also is a researcher professor at the University of Bologna in Italy and the Institut Français de la Mode in Paris. His paper is entitled Meaning Through Space, a cross-reading of fashion exhibitions and fashion stores.
Thank you, Sarah. Thank you. I know I have a digesting audience, so I try to put as many images as I could, few texts, just one scheme. Let's go. Good to be here. Quite excited to be here for two reasons. In particular, I myself organized Semiofest in Paris 2 years ago. It was a thrilling experience. I know how much effort it takes and how much excitement it brings, so thank you very much. And the second reason is that I just know it, not yesterday, but the day before, I've been appointed in Montreal, so I'll be in Canada. And it was not planned. I mean, the two things were totally independent. So it's Semiofest decided 1 year ago, more or less, and the second thing much more recent. But I hope I'll enjoy this country, this culture, because I'll be just next door since starting from January 2018. Professor and researcher at the UQAM, Université de Montréal, du Québec à Montréal, sorry. So, keep in touch. I'll be here 70% of my time, consulting, of course, but mostly teaching. So I'll leave Bologna as an academic affiliation. Good to know that there is no academic affiliation written on my badge. Fantastic, because the old one is just old, no? And the new one is about to come. So. Good. Meaning through space. I'm going to talk about space, art space for fashion exhibition and commercial spaces, retail spaces, and trying to celebrate the potential of the paradox, something which is quite difficult to tell about to my clients. Clients comes with the problems and you say, okay, we have to do something paradoxical, something apparently impossible. It's already a little bit like, really? Yeah, there is something nice to say about this. There is something interesting to understand about this. And the reading of fashion exhibitions helps us to understand this about retail spaces. Okay. The story starts here. The middle of the 19th century. What fashion, how we know it, the way we know it today, is something quite new. It was born at that time. Before the middle of the 19th century, fashion was a matter, it was closer to artistry, craftsmanship, and done from individuals for individuals. So one artist, one tailor, working for one customer. From this moment on, Charles Frederick Worth, the first grand couturier in history, fashion, and haute couture in particular in Paris, this specific production we today consider the highest expression of artisanal craftsmanship and being part of the arts. In fact, from this moment onwards, fashion starts to be produced in series, and Worth knows everything about the car industrial system, loves it, and applies the same methodologies in terms of standardization of the work in his atelier, saving raw materials and saving time. So, luxury gets in touch with industry, modern luxury, even before being born. So what we consider today art in commerce is, in fact, born in the industrial culture. Walter Benjamin, German philosopher, writes about all this stuff, saying something, many things, very interesting things, but something in particular. These products are losing their aura. This part of magic, which makes of them something special, something really particular, being unique objects for unique customers. And these products are looking for their aura to be brought back. How? First thing, the spectacle, the spectacularization of fashion at the Great Exhibition in London, 1851, made philosophers, sociologists, and experts write pages and pages on the fact of transfiguring products through the setting, through the display. And I'm choosing this picture, well, I'm choosing the Great Exhibition in London in 1851 because it is the starting point for both fashion exhibitions, which start to exist from this moment onwards, Southampton Museum in London, now the V&A, and the fashion retail development. Le Bon Marché in Paris, exhibiting haute couture for the first time in history, was opened the same year, 1 year later, to be correct. But Boucicaut visits this place the year before, changes the project, calls Mr. Eiffel, the Eiffel Tower in Paris, works on an amazing structure according to this model. So fashion is a complex product. For a second reason, the production, blah, 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 already talked about. The second reason, it becomes more and more a support for individual and collective identity, for gender definition, and for cultural insertions of individuals in a collective system. So fashion is something concrete, it's a product, but it's also something symbolic with intangible values. This is why exhibitions on fashion becomes relevant and then necessary. You know, in the word display in English, there is a same etymological root of explain. So unfolding the folds. What is piegato in Italian? I know that there are a few Italian speakers in the audience. Dispiegare, spiegare, esplicare come from the same root. What is folded, complex, can be unfolded and make flat. So the exhibition, exhibiting, and putting forward, does this. So it becomes interesting, relevant, and necessary to explain the fashion complexity. The first exhibitive model comes from the Great Exhibitions. It's a pedagogical exhibitive model with a very prescriptive layout made of objects and written text and textual information, trying to connect in intangible and invisible meanings to tangible products and tangible garments in this case. And it also portrays, in a semiotic perspective, a quite subordinate visitor. He doesn't know anything about it, and through the exhibition she learns about what she can't understand, a matter of education. This format evolves into what we call today the white cube, even simpler. When if the first layout was a matter of education, a matter of pedagogy, in this case it's a matter of magnification we find in the white cube, leaving the object alone in a white space, in an empty space, in order to do what? To recreate the aura that Benjamin was claiming for these vulgarized products that modern luxury developed. In this case, this model portrays, as well, in a semiotic perspective, a very competent visitor, a very competent interlocutor. Nothing is written, nothing is explained. The wide context presents one product or a selection of products, and everything has to be understood intuitively. I always put a picture from the past and a picture from the present to show that these models are still here and communicating, each of them according to a particular perspective. Then the 50s, the 70s, the 60s, the 70s brought a new model. I heard about Semiosphere this morning by Professor Danesi, and this is exactly what happens in terms of exhibition and retail space. Fashion being not a unique ultimate object, but being understood, read as the expression of a broad cultural system. And it is included in a broad cultural system. The same way that the artworks, quotation marks here, are diluted in a universe, in a whole imaginary. For a non-competent visitor, totally incompetent visitor, not asking to be educated, but asking to feel part of the culture in question, or to self-position, to be self-positioned according to the culture which is displayed. And fashion being just an expression of this. In more recent times, a new model of fashion exhibition emerges, as it emerges in any kind of exhibition actually, the experiential one. The exhibition becomes an immersive context, interactive, highly playful, actionable, and portraying a cooperative spectacle, someone wanting to interact. Retail spaces develop the same way, at the same time. So exhibitions and retail spaces develop the same way. Talking about the advantage through messages with a prescriptive layout, the selection, the model of the gallery, Yohji Yamamoto, Rue Cambon in Paris, is a perfect example for this. The semiosphere and the whole cultural imaginary, Fiorucci in the 60s, Ralph Lauren today, and experience. The very simple experience of total emptiness, the product is not even there, comme des Garçons in New York in the 80s, or the high interaction that Farfetch, the store of the future, proposes today. So, why does experience matter? Because these models are, each of them is the emanation, the expression of a particular social-cultural situation. Why does experience matter? Because the whole culture today is experience-driven. The hyper-modern era, according to Gilles Lipovetsky's definition, needs experience at any level of its reality. And this also brings a new audience, a new population. The me title of the time is explainable this way. Being the center of a global experience, me, of course, and I can describe this population as a trans-aesthetic population, being able and wanting to shift from different perceptive modalities in a very short time frame, and also multiplying the layers of perception in terms of aesthetics. Baudrillard used this term for the first time in theoretical terms. So, if art, fashion in the art space and fashion as a product share a unique and only the same regime of exchange. So they are matter of exchanges. Artworks and products can be exchanged, given, bought, etc. This is true from a pragmatic point of view, on a practical level, but on a symbolic level, the connotations describing the two artifacts are quite different. On one side, we have the proximity of the store, the accessibility of the store. On the other one, the distance and the pedagogical aura embedded in the concept of exhibition itself. And also, luxury, which I started to talk about at the very beginning, it's in itself a paradoxical definition, resuming the imaginary of contemporary fashion, because luxury as well talks about the proximity of goods. It is there to be bought and to be purchased. At the same time, what is explicitly presented is the distance given from the art display in this case. I would like to focus on two examples. Louis Vuitton Art Foundation in Paris, total discontinuity according to the landscape around. The foundation itself is an object, and the inside is white cube oriented in the interior. So once again, objects presented to build exhibition. The retail space works the same way, merging the white cube model and the imaginary model, but presenting products in a context. Prada, on the same market, works very differently. Total continuity with the city. The Fondazione Prada in Milan, the art space, is just a part of Milan, not one object isolated in the city. It's just a section of the city, shifting codes in terms of colors and materials, but being part, oh my gosh, being part of the city without any separation. Everything is about relationships, performances, events, symposia, and conference. This model, both Vuitton and Prada, took it from their retail space. This one for Prada in particular, Soho flagship store in New York. Look at the facade. You don't even have the name of the brand. Everything is about intuition. Everything is about creating a relationship with the brand and through the space in particular. And inside, once again, the brand codes are not present. They are just indicated for very weak elements, but the space is multifunctional, and everything is about establishing relationship. It's about processes and not recognizability of signs. Vuitton and Prada. What kind of customer? A cognitive one for Louis Vuitton. So he's there to learn about the brand, to get information about the brand. A pragmatic, aesthetic customer for Prada, doing things and establishing relationships. The brand here, it's an identitarian brand, wanting to be recognized. Prada expresses a more original point of view, not its brand identity, but its brand's vision on the world in general, through very elusive enunciation, while Louis Vuitton used a very direct, explicit enunciation, showing things as they are. In this case, we have, in technical terms, an allographic enunciation. So the things to be said is diluted in the enunciative discourse and not isolated in one sign, to use a very old notion. The offer for Vuitton, just presenting what it is to be purchased, and the interplay suggested by Prada as a way to get in touch with the brand. While Vuitton is transmitting information, Prada and the customers at Prada are generating information. If Vuitton is about admiration, as in a museum, Prada is about the ritual, doing things the same way with different effects, of course, but it's about a process. I announced one scheme, and this is the conclusion. The simplest in semiotics, the semiotic square, articulating the category of exhibiting as a tension between showing and hiding. In this case, we can generate 4 tensions between the different poles. Showing and hiding articulates the idea of the selection, while hiding and not showing describes the notion of distance. Not hiding and not showing, it is the experience. I don't hide, I don't show, but everything can be found through action. Looking for, I find. So it's not saying that there is nothing in the space. There is the possibility of something. And the very last one, the proximity. I show everything and I don't hide anything. Yamamoto, Ricambon, the gallery model, the temple, total emptiness, comme des Garçons, the playground at Prada, and the museum at Louis Vuitton. In this case, admiration and learning. In this other case, discovery and co-production with the brand. When you think about discovery, when you think about co-production, you understand how this approach is closer to this millennial population. And in semiotic terms, but also in very simple terms, this is the paradox. In semiotics, we call this the complex term, associating two contradictory notions. It gets technical here, but in this case, you have contrary notions. That's not a problem. In semiotics, it's not a problem. The contradictory notions are a little bit more complex to have it in the same sign, in the same message, in the same enunciative style. Prada is doing it, as other brands, of course. It's the end. Just to remind that one century ago, Marcel Duchamp presented this object in New York in an art gallery, 1917, The Fontaine by Duchamp, the urinal, saying what? That ambiguousness matters. You put something ambiguous in order to have a more autonomous visitor and spectator, and to stimulate her responsibility in deciding if it's art or if it's just crap. And everything here happens according to a contextual thinking. In this case, the gallery gives value to the urinal. At Prada, the context gives value to the brand through the process. It's not about, in Latin, luxury about as life, so splendor, a spectacle. It's not about luxury, about superfluousness, the meaning of luxus. It is about the second meaning of this Latin term, which is the deviation, the gap, the luxus being what's aside what? Aside what it is normally expected. So the culture of the gap and the culture of the paradox. Thank you very much.
Very rich, and I particularly liked your use of the semiotic square. I think we have time for one question. Over there.
Hi, that was really fascinating. I have a question for you. What impact do you think fast fashion and sort of the co-opting of luxury, what impact do you think that's had on this idea of the aura? So for example, you displayed the Karl Lagerfeld for H&M, and people are sort of starting to get a sense of like the Celine trapeze bag, but it's not Celine, it's through Zara. It's this notion of the simulacra. It's a copy of the copy that people only know. And we're kind of seeing these pieces of art, these luxury items being democratized without people knowing the actual references. What do you think that's sort of doing in terms of like the notion of fashion and luxury, and then this idea of the aura?
This cultural area is even more relevant for fast fashion, honestly. I assume, as Frédéric Monneron and other authors, that luxury is becoming a matter of imaginary. It's not a kind of product. It's not a matter of price. It's a matter of signs, messages, and way of communicating things. I observe this all the time on the Eastern markets. I work on markets where Lancôme and Chanel are perceived the same way, just because they have equivalent models, equivalent testimonials, and the same kind of codes. And this is exactly how fast fashion brands are developing. H&M is one of these, Zara is one of these. So building a strong imaginary in terms of luxury references. Luxury is not just about beauty and aesthetics, but this idea of gap, of stretching the brand up, producing an imaginary which can be very far from the economic reality, the financial reality of the products. But we get the product to get in touch with the brand. And it's the same old story since 5 decades. But it is so clear today about these big groups work this way. That's why Karl Lagerfeld is important for H&M. And they're not trying to integrate the luxury system to become luxury. The idea is to make the brand stronger, whatever you buy from the brand, even if it's $5, the price you pay.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I'm sorry, I used question time for my speech. I apologize for this. I was quite late.
Okay, so next up we have another beauty-related paper from Jean Anneth.